Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I will be sharing some tips that I wish I knew when I started learning Spanish. And that isn't to say that I regret anything that I did or I wasted time. I mean, I probably did waste a bit of time, but we're gonna get into that. To Beatrice, a year and 9 months ago, there are a
small list of things that
I think would have really helped her. Hi, it's Beatrice from 2024. Hey, and I have some tips for you. Number one, you can read. You can start reading a lot earlier than you think you can. And at the time, I didn't really realize this because reading has always been something like kind of scary and daunting. Like, so I don't even remember the last time I finished a book. What? Yeah, so I was kind of scared to read in a new language. However, what actually did end up happening is I did read in another language and it was a beginner's book. However, by the time I had started reading the beginner's book, it didn't feel challenging enough or like that challenging, like that, it didn't really feel that hard. And that's because I had delayed it for so long that when it came to reading the beginner's book, it's just, I was like, they were teaching me new words and I was like, yeah, done a flashcard on that already. Done a flashcard, already know the word. Anki deck, already done it, So I would say read sooner. Reading activates that little voice in your head, and that little voice in your head needs to be speaking Espanol, or whatever language it is you're learning. However, what I would say to younger Beatrice is you can do it. You already know the words. A book is just a string of sentences. It's just a load of sentences together. Like, don't be scared. Also, I have to admit that it did take me a year to read my first Spanish book. So don't worry if it takes you a long time to read. I have literally been reading the same book for months. Yeah. And to be fair, I wasn't reading it every day. I wasn't reading it all the time. So there's that. I did take months off, but cover to cover, we're talking a year. So don't worry if you don't whiz through a book in a second language as quickly as you do in another one, because it's just harder to pick up sometimes because it's kind of hard and like you just don't want to do it. I think the key takeaway from this particular point is don't wait to get your first beginner's book in that language when you feel ready, because you are never going to feel ready. Even when I had bought it on Amazon, I didn't feel ready, but I was. All that tells me is I should have been reading that book maybe 2 months earlier, maybe 3 months earlier, but I just left it because I was putting it off. Just read, guys, just read a book. The second thing I would say is don't wander for too long. And when I say wander, I mean like wander around in the same spot, because that happened to me. Like, I was on Duolingo for 3 months is not bad, because I know people that have a 1-year Duolingo streak and they don't speak the language. You'd think in a year you'd be, somewhat speaking. When you stay in that comfort area for a bit too long, it really does hinder progress. So what I would recommend to my younger self is focus on the constraints of your level. Like, what is it that's holding you back from the next level? And focus on that rather than going over the things that you already know how to do and the things that you find kind of easy, because that's not what's going to break you out of A1, A2 into intermediate, then on to advanced. It's going to be doing the harder thing. What's that quote when it's like, doing the hard thing makes life easy, doing the easy thing makes life hard? For those of you who don't already know, my name is Beatrice and I post language related content. I taught myself Spanish in about a year, I'd say, up until fluency, and every single day I continue improving and sharing tips and just sharing my journey, helping people who would like to also start learning a language, or people who are just interested in culture and travel in general. Something that I would totally recommend to my younger self is on Google, search for whatever you're searching for in the language. So if you don't know how to say that, just do it on Google Translate, but at least the results that come up are going to be relevant. So it's just like, I guess this is more of an immersion tip, because sometimes immersion looks like watching Netflix, sometimes immersion looks like watching YouTube, and sometimes immersion is simply just doing a Google search of how do I hey Google, why does my stomach hurt? ¿Por qué me duele el estómago? When you're on the go, like if you're at the bus stop, for example, and you want to search something, just do it in that language. Like, This is an idea that I saw someone speak about on YouTube, and I really want to try it myself, but I'm just going to put it in this video so we can both try it. And this one is writing a one sentence, a complicated sentence. Like, it has to be a sentence that is mentally challenging for you. So this tip is writing a sentence in that language once a day and just going through it for breakfast, lunch and dinner, saying the same phrase. And then tomorrow you have a new phrase, the day after that you have a new phrase, and you just go over that phrase for the day. So you have a phrase of the day, and this phrase / sentence should be challenging, it should be a bit difficult. It's not something that just rolls off the tongue that you just say easily. Like, that's not the point, honey. The point is it's a phrase that has a difficult grammatical tense in it, or difficult vocabulary, or something like that. Another thing that I would recommend, if you are ready to take a professional exam, if you would like to. For me, I was never really too bothered about taking a professional exam because I'm just out here learning Spanish for vibes, like just because I can. However, recently I have thought I might take a professional exam, so I can have that like official that I have this certification in this language up to this level, right? The thing about these exams, a lot of them are pass or fail. And I don't really want to sit an exam and then fail it, because like, who wants to do that? Usually, like, think of university. During the build up to the exam, you study more, you revise more. So imagine that with languages. For the 1 month building up to the exam, I just know my Spanish is going to be the peak that it's ever been, because I know I have an exam I've paid £200 for. This exam's not cheap, so I'm not going to want to fail it. So obviously I'm going to study for it. So I guess the kind of trick in this is whether you pass or fail, your language skills will still improve. Think about it. You've given yourself a crash course out of pressure and fear. That is kind of like a language sprint. There's these things called language sprints, which is basically when you go crazy on the language for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's just a short burst of time. And then after you go back to normal, you go to reading your books, watching your shows. So a language sprint kind of happens naturally towards the build up for an exam. But yeah, so you could just do the language sprint and stay motivated and determined and get that done to a high level. But an additional motivator is having an exam afterwards and knowing you're going to be tested. So whether you pass or fail, like, the language sprint is going to happen because you have an exam coming up. So it puts a deadline on it. For 2024, I want to start putting in more deadlines on things that I do in my target language, because I noticed that without deadlines, things just, they drag on and they drag on. Like, for example, I have a book. Let me show you. So this is my absolute favorite book in English. It's called Girl, Woman, Other. And I read it over the summer, and it was a nice summer, and I read the book. And I have set a deadline that I need to be linguistically ready to read this in Spanish by summer. And it's going to be hard because I remember struggling to read it in English. And, my vocabulary in English is pretty normal, I'd say. My vocabulary in English is like C1. Like, I don't know if everyday people obtain a C2 level of English on a daily basis, but natives speak at a level B2 on average. And I struggled to read this. It was dense, it was heavy, it was the writer, like, she went to school, like this writer, she is a thesaurus. She was using words I'd never heard of in English. So that's why this is my challenge, to read this in Spanish. And I have a deadline, which is summer. So I'd say for 2024, definitely set yourself deadlines. And one of my deadlines is an exam, which I'm going to book this year. And another one is to start reading that book by summer 2024. Wish me luck, please. Something else that I would say to my younger self learning Spanish is that it's okay, not just okay, but it's actually beneficial to rewatch films, because it's spaced repetition in a film. Like, what more can I say? Do you know what I mean? I've watched SpongeBob now, the film, 4 times in Spanish. I haven't even watched it in English. I don't know why I just skipped that step of watching it in your native language first, but SpongeBob, I was like, yeah, let's put that on. Watched it the first time, didn't really get it that much, but I understood the gist. Second time, things are starting to click. Third time, I'm saying the line before Patrick or SpongeBob have even said it. That kind of stuff really, really, really helps. It just turns the entire video into a flashcard because it's spaced repetition again and again and again. It gives your brain enough time to acquire the script rather than watching a film once and then jumping to another film and watching that once and another film and watching that once. Watch the same film 3 times, so it will enforce the phrases into your brain and you're just not going to forget. Like there's things from SpongeBob now that I just know. Like I just know, and that's because I've watched a film 3 times. You know, same thing in English. If you can quote a film in your native language, you can do the same in a foreign one. I think that was my last tip. That's the last tip, honestly, honest to God, that I would give to myself 1 year, 9 months ago, starting out learning Spanish. Those are the exact tips I would give myself, and I'm really happy that I've been able to share them with all of you guys that are ready to start your language learning journey in 2024. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. Check out my other video about how I became bilingual from my bedroom. I also have an interview with someone from Guatemala. His name is Oscar. And if you don't understand all of it, that's okay. You can watch it again. There are subtitles you can add in your language or leave it in the original. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week. Ciao.